Raymond called it introductions, and I know business people call this whole setup introductions, but I happen to check the definition of introduction on Thesaurus, and apparently introduction is a formal presentation to one another in terms of who your name is, right? And then the one that I like is actually connections, because with connections, connections are based, it's actually a relationship that is associated or linked to someone or something. So I think we are all here because we are somehow connected to this guy. Because I wouldn't be here if I didn't know this guy. And you guys wouldn't be here if, you didn't know this guy. So I'm grateful to Raymond. I call him Mr. K, because anyone who's married, I always use the word Mr. and I shorten it. And I just take the first letter of the surname. So I'm really grateful to Mr. K for this opportunity to stand here and actually share my journey in terms of my experience, my personal and professional experience, because as a person or as a business person, you don't just pull out the strengths from a business perspective. You are actually who you are based on where you come from, based on the family you lived in, based on the people that you chose to interact with or did not choose to interact with, right? So I'm actually very excited hearing all of this, because I know most people, when you ask them, why are you in business? It's like, I want money, I want to make money. And then you ask the question, and then what? And then there's a full stop there. There's no, a person could never give you a reason why they're in business other than making money. Because if you're in business and your sole purpose is just making money, I can tell you right now that business is not going to last. It's not going to last. You may, okay, I suppose there's also, each and every person have got our own definition of success, right? But it can take you only so far. But if you want to build something sustainable, you really need to move away from the beach and taking the selfies like he was talking about. Stay at home, reflect in terms of who am I? Why am I here on earth, that is? What is my purpose? I like Stephen Covey's, one of the quotes that he says, in his younger life, he was working so hard, trying to climb the success ladder, and only to find that in the long run, the ladder that he was climbing was actually leaning against the wrong wall. So it goes back to what you're saying about, we do accountants, engineers, and whatever. I like watching cooking shows. I love baking, by the way. That's how I distress. And that's when ideas sort of come in my brain. Well, when I'm baking. So I like watching these cooking shows and the baking shows and stuff. And I mean, you learn so much about, you look at those shows and you look at people who are in those competitions. They never went to a culinary school. They're engineers. They are investment bankers. Because those are the people, I think, as they went in life, they actually found their calling, as you put it, to say, yes, I've been doing this, or my parents forced me to be a doctor. And now, as you go along life, then you realize that actually a doctor is not what you want to do. Being an accountant, I actually wanted to be a teacher all my life, from a very young age. I suppose if you think about when we were growing up in the 70s, you wouldn't relate. Yeah, the stories and you're thinking, that's unthinkable. But anyway, so during our days, we only had like professions around policemen, teacher, and Nurse, yes. So I looked at the nursing and I'm like, at the sight of blood, I would literally pass out. So nursing wasn't going to be. So I thought, okay, maybe a teacher. The teachers I've seen so far, they're not so bad. Maybe I want to be a teacher, right? And as I grew up, I still had this need. In my head, it was just something that was in there. That I'm going to be a teacher one day, right? And when I got to high school, I went to boarding school at a very early age. So when I got to high school, my accounting teacher, Mr. Main, said to me, no, actually, you're not going to be a teacher. You have to be an accountant. And I'm like, what is even a chartered accountant? So he had to sit through with me and we had to research about this chartered accountant, what. And I'm like, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure if I want to make money. You know, I just want to make a difference. And I really don't want to make money. So he says, believe you me, you will need it and you'll thank me for it. So I went through the chartered accountant route. But what I found over the years is that I've been teaching more than I've been an accountant. and I enjoy it. I enjoy imparting knowledge. I enjoy sharing knowledge. I'm very, very, very love you right now. Because, you know, for me, it warms my heart when I see a young person not at the shipping drinking or at a party somewhere, or, you know, but a young person who really, at that age, thinking about coming here on a Saturday and being with us. Okay, maybe I should speak for myself. Being with me. It really is, for me, it warms my heart. And I can tell you right now that you are going to go places. You stick around with these guys, they'll be laughing at you today. And plus minus 3 years' time, the jokes will be on the other people. So yeah, just, hang in there. It's got some rough patches. But, you know, if you hang in there, and you because this is where, for me, the difference between a person who wants to make money and the difference between a person who has a vision. Because when you have a vision, yes, you're going to go through tough times, right? But as long as you keep on going to your vision and have mentors who are really, really, really vested in what you're trying to do, you cannot fail. Yeah? Okay, so let's move over to what we're here. I think you said you're going to help me.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you still trying to figure out like I do?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So while he's still bringing up the slides, I think we can just talk on the presentation anyway. So we've dealt with the first point, which is around connections. We've introduced ourselves. We know who's who. And I like what Raymond was saying, to say, you know, the vision of the Game Changers is to come up with a knowledge bank. Because the reason why businesses, small businesses get successful is because we are able to support each other. We're able to create synergies. I'm able to say, look at what Joyce's strengths are, and I'm able to use her strengths to build my business, vice versa. So I like the whole idea of a business bank, a knowledge bank. Because we are able to create synergies from the knowledge, from the different knowledge that we acquire or we share with each other. I think on the next slide was why are we in business? Why are you in business? I think I've gotten that. And I'm actually grateful that nobody said because I want money. There were different reasons why people are in business, but what resonated for me was that you guys have spotted an opportunity in a form of a need or a want. I think you're the only one who said want, because you also, as a business person, you must also be able to know what you're selling. Are you selling a need or are you selling a want? And if you're selling a want, you need, I suppose it's the same irrespective, whether you're selling a want or a need, you need to know how long is that need or how long is that want going to last, right? And you have to put in strategies in place to say, how do I produce or how do I develop sub-products to actually buffer should, for instance, let's say it's in winter. Nobody really needs ice in winter. Okay, maybe some businesses do, because some people who drink, they drink throughout the 12 months. So, so those guys will probably need, but you really need to look at your business proposition and be able to say, how long is this service or this product that I'm offering, how long is it going to last? Do I have all the precautionary measures to make sure that in lower seasons, I'm able to still generate income that will still sustain the business throughout the 12 months, yeah? So going back to what Raymond was saying earlier, I think for me, this is like so key. I know that sometimes when we start businesses, it's not necessarily because we really want to go there, some of us, right? It could be due to a variety of reasons. But I've seen this happening. I mean, you can't possibly come up with a sustainable business if you do not do a business or engage in a business that is aligned with who you are. Now, for you to be able to have a business that's aligned with who you are, you need to know yourself,
Yeah,
which means
right.
there's a lot of reflection that needs to take place, right?
Mm.
And you can't do reflection whilst you're still on Instagram and Twitter and what else? Facebook and I think you guys are just, the only reason I'm on WhatsApp is because my daughter's school forced us to be on this parents' WhatsApp. But I don't do social medias. But I think now he's gonna force me to be on Facebook. So because I want to follow this vision.
Oh,
Unless you're gonna copy stuff and send them to me, but but I don't think social media is as bad as per se. You need to understand as a business person why you're on social media,
yeah.
right? Don't follow anyone who's anyone, unless that anyone who's anyone is linked somehow to your vision.
That's right.
Yeah. We've done the introductions basically. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this I think we've covered because one of you guys did, I think it was Shelton, who was talking about the need. And Judah, I think you also, it wasn't also much of the word that you used, the need, but the fun park. That's a beautiful vision, because I think unfortunately most of the time we adults, I suppose we've been flooded with so many challenges and everything else that's happening in our lives, we hardly think about kids, right? And you can only do a successful business that revolves around anything that's kid related if it's in your heart. It cannot go any other way. It's actually quite interesting. I was doing some research for a client of mine in Durban, and he wants to do sort of a fun park, right? but on the other side of the south coast. So I was thinking to myself, but there's already, who's that Saul Kesner's thing in the thingy? There's a sort of almost an equivalent of a fun park that is owned by Saul Kesner. So if you think about it, this guy has been owning this fun park from, I think, early 90s. And he saw an opportunity, not that he identified the need, because there's a difference between an opportunity, a need, and a want, yeah? Depending where your vision is directed, right? So Saul Kesner took that land from, I think it was Matanzima at the time, just before 1994. And you won't believe he paid Matanzima, of which he went to jail for in the latter part of I think, of the 90s. He used to pay him something like almost close to 5,000 a month for the leasing of the land. I mean, I'm talking about it, if you think about how, anyone been in Durban, mini town, how it looks like, what else is in Joburg actually, it's very user-friendly for kids. I'm trying to think what's in Joburg that's, what's in the south there?
Go City.
Gold Reef City.
Okay.
So what Saul Kesner has done in the south coast in Durban, something that's equivalent to the Gold Reef City.
Okay.
And he was paying Matanzima close to 5,000 a month. And he was making not less than 800 million per annum.
Wow.
Exactly. From like towards the latter part of 1994, from the latter part of the 90s, till now, things have gone very up. Morning, welcome. Oh wow. You are a girl after my own heart. You are just gonna be a businesswoman in making, eh? Hello. So now his business has gone to court, and it transpired that that business wasn't quite, it shouldn't have been there in the first place. So now, I'm getting to the whole sustainability thing, that you can do things the quick way, which may look like it's sustainable for a number of years, but if you're not doing things properly, it's always going to come back to you. Then you always have to start afresh. So you're just wasting your energy at the end. So most people, at the beginning especially, they get into business for different reasons, right? Some, they want control. Some, they've got this creative spark, of which they feel constrained within the work environment, and then they think, oh, I can't deal with this company, let me go open my own company. Others, a desire for commercial success. Others are compelled by experience or circumstances, whether you're laid off at work. I have to tell you, it's actually quite interesting because how I actually got into business. I never really, my husband is the one who's business-minded, or used to be business-minded or business-driven and everything. I never really wanted to do any of this stuff. I was like, okay, you just do everything, because he's also a chartered accountant, so he gets all the business and I do all the slave work. And then he collects the money. So thinking about, I'm coming to an example of being laid off at work. So I was fired from my job, and I was thinking, oh, but I thought you said you wanted me here, because I really didn't want to work for that, you know how government SOEs work, right? When my boss was Dr. Rampele, those of you if you know him. So whilst I was doing my business, I was trying to go to Ghana with this friend of mine, doing mining. I was more going to be on a supporting role. So I was about to leave South Africa, go to Ghana, and then Dr. Rampele came by. This is what we want to do in the science and technology space. We really need you to be on board. And I really refused. And she was pestering. You can never say no to that woman. up until I succumbed. So she was the chairperson of the board. As her board finished, we had a new board, the Zuma board. So you know what happens when you say no to certain people. So yeah, we got the boot, myself and the CEO. And when I was at home, I thought, okay, maybe let me just stay at home. Maybe God, you want me to be a housewife? But then I look at the kids and I'm like, yeah, I want to run away. Kind of. Yeah, you guys are evil. So as I was staying at home, that season really helped me because I had to really, I never had time. I was busy running all sorts of things. I never had time. I was forever traveling. The only reason I would come home is for changing clothes, and then I'll be.
Wow.
I was forever jet lagged. I was all over the show, and that helped me being fired, because at the time it didn't make sense. I'm like, but I'm a good person. How can they do this to me? Kind of a thing. But then politicians don't really care. But they helped me. They really helped me because one, I would probably wouldn't standing here. Probably would be in jail with
Wow.
some,
Yeah,
because
like
if you
that.
say yes to certain things,
Sure.
unfortunately the big guys whose signatures are not on documents, they're not going to be in jail. You're the ones going to be in jail. So for me, I'm grateful, looking back in retrospect, I'm grateful that that happened to me, because that forced me to reflect on my life, and actually that actually helped me to re-foster relationships with my family, because my child, I had one child at the time, she didn't know me. She didn't know me. She'll get all the expensive toys and all the things that I'll come from all over the world and everything. Yet there just was there was no relationship. You know, she was covered from a financial perspective, but I mean, emotionally she was just like bankrupt. So that really helped a lot, and that season assisted me, or helped me a lot in terms of really refocusing my mind, looking at what exactly I want to do and how exactly I want to make a difference, right? Let's go to the next slide. Oh. So we'll talk about hard facts. I'm not sure if you guys are following the space, of which you should, because one thing I found about us brown people is my daughter will say it. She actually challenged the teacher to say, no, I'm not black, I'm brown, and you're not white either. You teach. So we called in for a meeting, and my husband was like, but what's the problem? So the hard facts is that most of the startups, they dissolve within the 3 years of inception, mainly due to lack of support. Lack of support can come in many ways, either lack of funding for the space in which you're in, or lack of funding generally, because unfortunately our DFIs are not working the way they should. Your NEFs, your IDCs, I've heard people saying, I mean, they've done everything according to the book, but because they don't have the right connections, whatever that means, they couldn't get funding. And instead, someone wanted them to pay them something in order for them to get funding. I think that's the most craziest of things. But in any case, it's what it is in South Africa right now, and I hope it's really going to change, because then it's pointless having all these institutions which government purports to be of assistance to us, and yet there's no money coming in. I'll give you a classic example of my experience. I did exactly that. I know exactly how that feels, to not have enough support in terms of finances, because my husband and I run most of our businesses in Venda, because we want to create industries that side. I think Venda, like you're saying, Lephalale is very underdeveloped, and they've just had their first mall last year. in August.
First Mall.
Yes, with McDonald's and things. So everybody's very crazy going, what is this thing? You know, but they just had their first mall last year. That's how underdeveloped it is. So when I got fired, what we did was, so the decision was, do you pursue these guys and raise so much money off your pension in court? Because then they're also using your tax money to fight you. Or do you do something, right? So I decided I was gonna use my pension to fund my own projects. So we've built quite a number of, there's a problem with accommodation in Venda, both residential and, excuse me, and business related. So we plowed in our pensions, and here's an interesting thing about entrepreneurs. When I got fired, my husband tells me, I think I'm gonna resign. And I'm like, what do you mean? No, I think I need to pursue this thing. And I'm like, do you understand what being fired means? Like, no income. So you cannot be telling me you're resigning too. How are you gonna leave? So, and he did. I didn't speak to him for quite a number of weeks. But looking back, it actually had to happen that way, and it was a good idea that it happened that way, because it really forced us to reprioritize and refocus our energies. So we've built a number of residential accommodation for students, and we have a contract with the University of Venda. So whenever they get students, we have to decide whether we're building the next phase for the next year, or we can be able to fill up whatever we've got. So currently on phase 3, of which more students are coming from next year, and they will be ready for next year, right? So what's the next one? Oh, the need, right? We spoke a lot about the market need. Most of the businesses, they totally, it goes back to what I was saying, that if your sole reason for being in business is just making money, you're going to miss that point altogether. It may make you money today and maybe the next 12 months, but that's all you're going to have. It's not going to be more than that. Strong teams as well. I suppose when you are in smaller businesses, we don't have a lot of people.
Yeah.
But whatever that you have, you're going to make sure that they are aligned with your vision. Because if it's just an employee, we'll talk about satisfied versus engaged employees, right? If it's just going to be a satisfied employee who's going to be like looking forward to the end of the month and ask you if you miss just the 25th and say, where's my money? Then you're going to be in trouble. You'd rather be by yourself. Is there anyone who's going to look after it? She knows where she's going.
Can you get the phone, please?
And the door must be closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I've seen is that most businesses, small or big, they fail really because of lack of financial management or financial mismanagement. I mean, you've seen the story of Steinhoff, how it was exactly this. They had loads and loads of money, but the mismanagement that's what let them down. Okay, let's go to the next one. I think the slides that I gave you, they were quite open there, and I thought I'm going to fill them with my quotable quotes. I love quotes. I live by quotes. And by the way, the reason I wanted to, the point I wanted to make earlier was that we do not, especially brown people, we do not read. We don't read. It's a fact. And let me tell you, if you do not read, you're going to miss so many opportunities. You're not always going to have a Raymond giving you prophecies. Yeah? And even if he does give you something, you still go and research.
That's right.
And then it goes back to the whole, I tell you guys, look at the time, you know, what my mother used to say, you value what you spend most of your time in. You can tell me what you value, but I'll look at you and look at your life in a couple of days and I'll tell you exactly what you value, right? So look at the time you're spending on social media and evaluate that and ask yourself serious questions to say, okay, what am I getting out of this? Because for me, everything that I do, I always ask myself, what's the value? Even if when you've been invited in a party, adult parties, not the other enjoyable parties that people do. So like a party, I mean, you can't be going to parties every month, you know, or every weekend, because you need to think to yourself, you always have to, with life, you always have to do what I call the cost versus benefit analysis. What's the opportunity cost of me doing this as opposed to that? If you're going to go to parties or you're going to get all the invitations, I know maybe you're popular, it's just me, I don't get a lot of parties invitations. You really have to sift through and say, it's not about what am I going to get if I go there, but it's about what am I losing. Like for instance, you lose the time that you could easily spend with your kids and connect with your family, as opposed to going to 100 parties, you know? So you always have to evaluate everything that comes to the fore, because at the end of the day, you only have 24 hours.
That's right.
And there's a reason God gave you 24 hours, so you can never say, it's not enough. Believe you me, it is enough. 24 hours is enough, -8 for sleeping, no 3. I know some business people, they pride themselves to say, I want to sleep 3 or 4 hours. There's no such. You can't function. I've done it. It's not possible. It's not possible. I was involved in a forensic work, forensic investigations. I won't say which company, but for the Zondo Commission, just at the beginning of the year, for 3.5 months, you know. I was zapped for energy. I couldn't drive. There was a time that I couldn't drive. My husband had to drive me to the site because we were hardly sleeping. And I tell you, you cannot, like we were doing 3 hours tops of sleep, 3 to 4 hours of tops of sleep out of 3.5 months. And I tell you, towards the end, you can feel it. You're not functioning properly. And it takes you so many days and so many weeks to recover. Well, especially at old age, it does. Believe you me, the body will like literally fight with you, whether you like it or not. So I love these quotes, and you'll see when you start reading, you find the most beautiful of quotes that if you look at them or if you read them and reflect on them, they're life lessons. I mean, this for me, I link it to, for my sins as a mother, I watch all the Cartoon Networks and things. Not by choice, you have to sit there and watch all the Barbies and everything. But you know what I found with all those movies and some of the Cartoon Networks, there's so much valuable lessons that we can learn as adults. That's way better than Twitter and other stuff. I'm not sure what you guys get out of there. It's a session for another day, but yeah. So I love this one. Opportunity is missed by most people because it's always dressed up in overalls and looks like work. And people these days, I think that's what you were saying earlier in the introduction, we don't want to work. We're always saying, oh, you know, we are the victims of the apartheid. As if they took away the brains, you know? No, we're waiting for government. I think the worst thing that government did was to come up with the grant system. That's the worst thing that any human being can ever do to. It's worse than apartheid. Controversial as it may sound, honestly. Because let me tell you, I go, my aunt stays in Katlehong. I visit her quite often. You get there, you find these girls, they don't want to go to school. Even if they have been forced to go to school. My first one sister is a teacher. And she can tell you, towards the end of the month end, no girl is in class. He's only teaching boys and some boys, because some boys they will be accompanying those girls who are going to get the grants.
Wow.
And you've lost the whole week, 1.5 weeks of work. And you wonder why kids fail.
Wow.
It's exactly that. We never had grants. We had to walk to school. We had to, if you knew you were going to die, if your parents knew what you were doing at school. It's not supposed what you're doing in school, but it's what it is. I just find that it's a shame that the whole grant system has actually made us not to appreciate what God gave us
Wow.
in terms of brain. And there's a research work I read the one time where they were saying actually overall human beings, brown, pink, red, or whatever color, we actually use about 10% of our brains. That is scary. Because what happens to the 90? Do you know what can happen if we had to use up at least half of that for starters? Do you know how much knowledge bank or how many knowledge banks we can have if we could just try and move from the 10 to the 15 to the 20? Within 5 years, you would have done so much.
That's right.
Time is money, and I know you said at the beginning this was for free. It wasn't for free. Even if these guys, they paid 200 rand, some person may think it's a meager amount, but if you think about it, can you ever get out of Pick n Pay without paying 200 rand? Yeah? You wouldn't. And also the time you're investing in developing yourself as a person, as a professional, as a business person, or as an aspiring business person, it's valuable. It's costly. Because if you think about sitting here, you could be doing some designs, or you could be meeting some people, you know? So it's not for free. You cost everything. I think with accountants, Joyce and Marco, I think you can agree. I think lawyers are worse. They even cost the email, the page that they sent you. No, we don't go to those drastic measures, but I think this is what you need to start ingraining in your brain when you're operating a business. Everything is costly. It may be a bit cheaper than other things, but everything that you do is costly. You have to be able to cost what you're doing with your time on a daily basis. You have to. You have to. I mean, I know maybe at the beginning it may sound a bit tedious because you've got deals to make, right? But as long as you do not know how much you're losing as a business, you can never be able to know what your business is capable of achieving. We spoke about this in terms of values. We value what we spend our time on. We can go to the next slide. So the pillars of successful businesses. We spoke briefly about satisfied employees and engaged employees. If you don't have this, you can never get to that. And you definitely are sure you're never going to get that. I mean, it's the simple things. You go to Pick n Pay, you find someone with a mopey face, and it's already 9 o'clock in the morning. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're thinking, oh my word, do you want to give advice, or you just don't want, you want to find another Pick n Pay, because this person is going to really ruin my whole day, right? You've seen that.
Yeah.
And the other time I was in KFC buying my daughter some pops and chips and some crusher thing. This guy gives me a tub. It's drilling with chocolates and things, and I'm like, so how am I supposed to hold this? And he goes, oh no, here's another cup. You know, as a business person, if his boss was there, you would have been either fired, or at least if, that's what my husband says, I shouldn't go back to formal employment because I'll fire everybody on the spot. I'm allergic to lazy people. I'm allergic to people who just do not take their work seriously. I really am. And he gives me an extra tab. And I think to myself, that extra tab is actually a cost to the business. I didn't buy 2 tabs. I only bought 1. And the owner of the business doesn't know how much he's lost, if he counts at all. Because all of these things, at the end of the day, whether you evaluate your business results on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, it cannot be more than a month, you have to be able to know what are your inputs to the business, how much are those inputs, how much they've generated income. And whatever cost that you incur, you need to be able to identify, because cost is not just cost, because it's money that went out of the business. You have to know, is it wastage? Is it pilferage people stole? Is it due to damage? It's what? You have to know that. Because if you don't know that, you can never know how much you're making or how much you should make. Right? So satisfied employees, they just really look forward to payday. And if you're lucky, they're really going to give you a bare minimum. It's like, I've done my job, tick. How the job is done, they don't really care. They've done the job, they've counted the hours, they look forward to payday. Every successful business needs engaged employees. Engaged employees are vested. When you've got those guys, those are gems. They are vested in the business. They are committed. They love what they do. They support your vision because you, as a person up there, you're able to communicate what the vision of the business and what's the role of the person in that business. Because if sometimes you find that people, they come in maybe as engaged employees, right? But they end up being just satisfied employees because the leader, what you were saying about if you do not know anything about yourself or if you are not a good leader, you can never lead the next person. So unfortunately, some employees are trapped in that. So as a good leader, you have to be able to spot, do I have satisfied employees? How do I either move them out or how do I make them engaged employees? Engaged employees give you ideas to say, you know what, Shelton, I think maybe if we can do this and this and that, maybe this business, I've seen, or maybe I have a customer, one of the customers was complaining about this and that, and then I think we can be able to, those are engaged employees, not someone like, when is up past 4? Actually, these days, I think I see a lot of cars on the road run about 3, up past 3. And I'm worried because I'm thinking, in this economy, no wonder we're sitting with this problem. It's crazy. And you guys are the guys who really have to be trailblazers. Raymond has come up with something incredible. You have to be trailblazers. And let me tell you, when this whole Game Changers forum, it's going to grow. And when it does, some people, you know what some people do? They want to see. It's like, oh, let me see. What does he think? Who does he think he is? And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, this thing is working. If he can do it, even myself, I can be able to do it, kind of a thing. And then some people, unfortunately, they wait for others to trailblaze. Then they follow on the path. It's unfortunate, but that's how it works. So you guys, for the fact that you have invested in this, not just the 200, with your time, with your mind, with your heart, you are the guys who are going to be trailblazers and set the path for more people to come in and say, you know what, we are better in this. We are better than this. Because what happened, I always ask myself, what happened when we didn't have all these social medias? What were people doing? It's a question. What were people doing? So it's a fact that when you've got engaged employees, those are definitely going to create customer loyalty. Because as a customer, you want to have that wow factor. When you come out of a business, whether it's a shop or it's a formal business that you are a client to, you want to have that wow factor. You want somebody who's going to literally care. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? How can we assist you? And as business leaders, we somehow assume that the employees, they know that. But unfortunately, in most cases, they don't. So like Raymond was saying, making money is easy. Sustaining that is the difficult part. I think dealing with employees is the difficult part. I had to consolidate. I worked for a business where I had to consolidate about 52 companies in 1 year. It was 7 entities, 52, who had 52 investee companies. That was the easy part. Dealing with numbers and papers I can do every day. People, difficult, painful. You like think, God, do I need this? I didn't go to school for this. But anyway, I tell you, people are the most difficult. Well, I don't want to say difficult. As a leader, you have the challenge to invest your time in developing the people. Because you think about 7 different companies who came with all these investee companies. It's 7 different cultures, plus 52 others whom these companies have invested in. You think about all of those different cultures, whatever those people were doing things, and try to now put everything together, and you think they're all going to be a nice choir that sing the rhyme and hymns, excuse me, in a plausible manner. You've got something else coming. People are the most difficult of people of challenges in business. And if you can get that right, and the only reason you can get that right is for you to be really vested. Invest the time, especially at the beginning. You can't do it at the late, because remember, you're building a foundation of the business. If you can get that right, the minute you have your customer base, that I stay in Midrand. I'm not sure if you guys know where Lyndhurst is. It's towards town. I go to my doctor all the way from, I pass so many doctors from Lyndhurst from Midrand to Lyndhurst, because I get value, not just for money. When I go there, she's not just a doctor who's going to say, okay, what's wrong in everything, you know? When you get there, you get out with something. And you want, as a business leader, you want to create that wow factor for your customers. You need to ask your customers, why are you doing business with me? You know, why are you doing business with me? Because that's the only way you're going to be able to improve your business. Don't worry about the competition. I know most guys always say, you must study the competition. You don't have to study the competition. Engage with your customers. Engage with your employees. Everything else will fall into place. Don't worry about the competition, because I always say, unless you get into somebody else's brain, you can never know what they're thinking. And you can never know. You can never want to be like the next person, because, like I was saying, you never know what they're thinking. You don't know whether this person is making money, and yet at the same time they want to kill themselves. And you want to be like that person. Be your own person.
That's right.
Engage with your employees, engage with your customers, engage with your suppliers. It's the whole value chain. There's no other way. That's the only way it can work. I always say business, I really do business. I really do believe that business is about relationships based on trust. There's no way you're going to be able to develop trust or get a buy-in from the next person if you don't invest your time to listening to them, to engage with them, to hear what they're thinking. So, once your engaged employees have created that customer base that you want, they will definitely drive your business results. From a qualitative point of view, as well as the quantitative. Quantitative is what we're going to be dealing with today, because we're mostly going to be dealing with numbers and compliance, which translate to numbers anyway. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. How are we doing in time? Sorry.
Can I ask a question? What do you see as the difference between a need and a want?
A need and a want. So, a want is, I'm going to have to use probably, a need is the food that we eat, right, for sustenance. A need is the education that our kids need to get, right? A need is, what other example of a need? I'm actually thinking about a person who's perceived to be rich, to say, what is his need, what is his want? A want is a Ferrari, yeah? And a need is a, yeah, a need is a van. Not a double cab, a van. That's a need for your business. But a want is something that you can do without. That's why I was saying, I know we're saying it's a need, it's a want, because your client base, it's split into two. There is, one, it relates to the needs for certain businesses, but also it relates to the wants for certain client base, right? In terms of people who are partying and everything. With the economy going like that, and you're driving this massive car that's got all these wheels and things, you have to put 1,000 plus petrol and insurance and the partying, as the economy shoots up, the partying sort of goes down, right? So that's a want. That's why I was saying, when you have a business like that, you need to balance the two. Go for more of those businesses who cannot do without your product. It's good to have all these other supporting ones because they buffer to your revenue, right?
Yeah.
But you must always make sure that you targeting those where you're going to be able to sustain your revenue. Are we good?
So need is something that people can actually do without.
Exactly.
Even if they want it, but it's critical. for them to
Exactly,
have it.
exactly. Here's another one that I like. 10 things that really require zero talent. If you just get these, believe you me, you're just halfway. Okay? You're really halfway. Being on time.
Yeah.
Being on time. Just wake up early just for today. Just like decide, I'm going to sleep when I come back. Or if you can't sleep during the day, you sleep the next, like at night, right? You're going to sort of catch up. You can do catch up if you've missed just a couple of hours the night before, not over 3 months. Work ethic, that is critical. Nobody wants to follow someone who's dodgy. Nobody wants to do business with someone who's dodgy, right? So we spoke about effort, engaged employees, engaged, be an engaged boss, because it works both ways. You can't have engaged employees and then you're sloppy and everything and you just pitch at work. You expect everybody to pitch at work at 7 and then you come at 10. Unless there's a reason. But it cannot work like that. Body language. It's very critical. I know some of us were taught differently. Actually, most of us. You know, I'm not sure if you guys had the same thing. You know, when you speak to an old person, don't look them in the eye, it's a sign of disrespect. You know, you get to business world and they look at you and like, what's wrong with you? What are you hiding? Now you have to reverse the roles. And I tell you, it was tough. You're lucky. You don't have to deal with all that. You know, over and above trying to figure out, you know, which ladder to follow in the corporate world, you still had to, you know, undo the injustices of the past. But anyway, body language, I'm really serious. You cannot be talking to someone and you're like, not necessarily folding your arms, but you're just like, you're not interested. It's like, yeah, just do that. You know, let's get it over and done with. That's not a way of talking to people. But even the way that, even you can say something in a positive, or at least it will sound positive. But if your body language is not necessarily translating to what you're saying, employees are like people, they're like kids. You tell a kid, don't eat sweet. And then you eat sweet. They're going to do what you're doing. Same with employees. Same. Energy. Energy. Guys, let's be fit. You don't have to pay, what's this thing for the gym?
Membership.
You don't have to pay gym membership. Walk. Like, do something. Drink water. Less on the beer. It's okay, wine every once in a while, but it cannot be every day. You know, it's the simple things that really energy. Because especially at the beginning, you have to deal with a whole lot of things. You don't have, excuse me, you don't have the virtue of having a HR manager and a production manager and a sales and marketing guru and you're everything. But that being everything, it has to stop at some point, because I can't even remember who said this, that, you know, entrepreneurs, they define themselves as multitaskers, but you must always be careful that at the end you're defining nothing, because you're just like an amoeba, you're all over the show. You lose that opportunity to just sit and focus and be able to look and check if your vision is still intact, or whatever activities that you're doing, they still support the vision that you want to get to. Attitude, passion relates to energy, effort, being coachable. I always say that you're never too old to learn. We learn everything. I always say life is a university. It teaches you stuff every day, whether we like it or not. It's up to you what you want to take out of it. Doing extra. All your engaged employees are going to go the extra mile. You're not going to get anything out of your satisfied ones. Being prepared. I love what I saw happening here. You guys came already prepared. You know what you want to, even if you haven't started a business, but you have a vision.
Yeah.
It may not be clear in terms of how to get there, but it's there. That's all you think about. That's all you need to think about. If you really want that, that's all you need to concentrate on every day. Even if it's just one, to say, okay, how do I get there? Like, what things I need to do to get there? Actually, there's a very good friend of mine from Ghana. I'll hook you up with him, because he's very passionate about that country as well, much as he's based here. So I'm sure you guys, when you're billionaires, you'll remember. Because I'll be on pension. Next slide. So this is like the crux of the matter. This is like the heart of the business, the financial management bit. You can have all the brilliant sales strategies, have all the clients. If you don't follow this, it's just pointless. It really is pointless. You're really working backwards. So financial management cycle in business always takes in a form of 12 months. You go to CIPC, you register a company, they ask you, when do you want your financial year end to be? Can be January, can be February, can be March, can be December. But it's a very good idea to have a December year end, because everybody, I tell you, I think somehow in South Africa they shut down on the 15th, just before the public holiday. You can't get anything out of them. And already you have auditors that are coming through in February. And I always say half of you, as a business, you always count 11 months as being hopefully productive, because half of December, that's all you're going to get out of employees. If you're out of the employees, if you're lucky. If you've got engaged employees, you may just push through the 23rd also of December. Half of December, half of January doesn't work. I don't know, it's something that's somehow been engraved in people in South Africa. I don't understand. But people don't work throughout, because it's like, it's December, party here, party there. Exactly. Where is the party? That's the question, don't you know? We didn't close that sales deal, kind of. Nobody asked those kind of questions. So in financial management cycle, we always first look at the compliance. You guys can make so much money and everything. If SARS comes today to say, you owe about 3 million and you don't have a buffer on your reserves to pay the 3 million, and you're a small business, you have to shut down. Exactly. It's the little things. Actually, I was even saying to Raymond today, this is just a teaser, because businesses and finance, or business finance, is very broad. You can't do it in one
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Not even in 2.5, 3 hours. It's not enough. I remember when I used to train finance people in the whole of defense. It was a national project. We used to just, I think, concentrate on this for 5 days. Just this. That was 5 days. Before you even get to any of that other stuff. Budgeting. What we spoke about. You cannot, please help me. If there's anything you need to take out of this today, it's that you can never start a business without budgeting. You can't. You cannot. You literally planning to fail from the word go. Internal controls. It's what happened here this morning. The other laptop didn't have whatever it was. We had to double up. You always have to think ahead in the business to say, you always have to have these what ifs. What if this, what if that? Then you must have those precautionary measures in place in your head to say, if this happened, then the business can do this. Imagine if I only came with that one laptop and then that was it. Then we'll be sitting here and saying, maybe let's reschedule. Yeah? Financial accounting. We'll go into detail with all of this. Project accounting, and look at the differences between project accounting and financial accounting. Big one. Big one down there. Cash management. Because unfortunately, these things, you can't do one without the other. And if your eyes are not making sure that they are all, on all of these things, a business can suffer easily and quickly. Internal controls, exactly what we're doing, what we're talking about, Shelton. If you've got strong internal controls, you can live your business. You can be able, I run businesses in Venda, I'm in Joburg. I know they actually think, they probably think I've got some inyanga somewhere. It's like, because I ask the most weird of questions like, what happened to this? I'm like, how do you know? Where are you? That's the first question. Where are you? No, don't worry about where I am. I'm asking this question. Because as long as you don't have good internal controls, you are done. You're forever going to be there. You can't even be sick. You can't even be sick, and there's no way of running a business. There's no way of running a business. And then reporting. Reporting is very critical. I know small businesses, we don't have time for any of the stuff. Actually, most of the stuff we don't think we have time for. But those are the very critical. That's why this is called the heart of the business. You don't have a heart, what happens? Life stops. It's exactly the same with business. Have to, very key. Make moves in silence, your success will make the noise. There's no need to tell people, oh, I've made 100 million, I've made this, I've made that. Actually, that's when you're going to have lots of friends, unnecessarily. And then you're going to have to see when the business goes, you won't have those friends. So there's no need. It goes back to the whole point of energy. You're using your energy in the wrong things. You're telling people who have no clue or they couldn't care less about what your vision is. You're telling them how much you're making. Why? Why? I love this one from Robin Sharma. Don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. You're 40 years old and you're like, what a life. Because you've done so many parties, you've met so many famous people, but you've done sweet nothing. You as a person. I always laugh at people like, oh, my daddy's rich. Okay, it's fine when you're 13. I'll still be worried, but anyway, let's just go with it. It's okay. But when you're 25 and you're still saying my daddy's rich, that's a problem. What have you done? Actually, it's so sad that most of the kids that are coming from rich families, they don't go. You know, there used to be a program that says, going nowhere slowly. They're nowhere. They have no vision. They're so used to things being done for them. It's quite interesting, the community in Cape Town. Most of those kids there, they are called trust babies. A grown man at 40 still called a trust baby. Because their dad is like, this child can never, be able to make it on their own. So they've got conditions in terms of how to access that. So they try to be upright on a daily basis, looking forward to 40, just to get access to that money. In the meantime, they're doing nothing about their lives. Nothing about their lives. I always say, as long as you do not, your life doesn't translate to significance, you haven't even started living. Haven't. The next one. So compliance, the first compliance area is with CIPC. So these guys are the custodians of the Companies Act. I'm not even sure if we're going to have time for break, but it's all these books here. So this is all the Companies Act comprised into one. And then the next one, Institute of Directors, they oversee the corporate governance. Mostly the corporate governance aspect, even though I still say they're important in the small business, they're more critical or they're more enforceable in the public companies because they're looking after people's money, right? So when you've got a business idea like you guys did on your 101 session, you register a company. Just let me know when you have to take a break. I'll talk to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's 12:07. So I think.
Actually, we need to be quicker.
Yeah,
We need to be quicker.
The bathrooms are just behind us here.
Okay.
So I think people can just.
Oh, okay.
Can just be going one way.
Okay. So we all know if you want to register, if you want to have a business or a formal structure, you have to register a company. You choose whether you want to be a PTY or limited or LTD. Which is not even a choice because you can't just go to being an LTD because you have to be registered with the GSE. You must have had a track record.
So an LTD is when you go public?
Yes, it's a public company.
Oh, okay.
So remember they phased out the whole CCs?
Yes.
I think it was 2011. The CCs were phased out. Now we only have PTY LTDs. So you just automatically fall into the PTY LTD.
Okay.
Right? And the implications of that, do you know that if you don't, let's say you're engaging with other people on a business level, if you don't put name of the company, Sizwe Grills, PTY Ltd, if you don't put that PTY Ltd, should you not be able to honor your commitments in terms of paying your creditors, suppliers can go after you on a personal basis. It's very important. It sounds like a very tedious thing to do because it's always quicker just to put the name of your company and you leave out PTY Ltd.
Wow.
You have to.
Yeah, you know that.
Submission of annual returns, most businesses, they don't know this. CIPC can shut you down if you don't submit an annual return to them. And now they want it, I think effective from the 1st of July this year, they want it with annual financial statements, irrespective whether you traded for that year or not. And it must be submitted 30 days after the anniversary of incorporation. So on your company registration, they'll tell you the date of the incorporation. So you count anniversary being the 12 months. So 30 days after the 12th month, the 13th month, you have to submit that. Next slide. SARS. That's a big one. I think everybody's scared of SARS.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to be scared of where SARS is concerned. I mean, the Guptas were not scared of SARS at all. And I don't think they did anything right by the book. But anyways. So where we're going to concentrate on in terms of SARS is just the second bullet point, which is the companies, where most companies, they pay 28% of the tax, right?
That's on the profits, right?
Yes, so it will be your net, it will be your net income. So it will be, yeah, exactly the profits, your income versus your expenses for the 12 months. That's we subjected to 28%. But SARS has been trying to be lenient to us small businesses by trying to put in strategies, other ways or incentives to make sure that small businesses, they don't pay 28%, because 28% is really a lot. I cannot be paying the same way as Sasol, you know? Or Balo, those guys have been in business forever, right? And another one that links, that actually affects companies, is the provisional tax. So with provisional tax, it's a bit tedious, and also it doesn't really affect smaller businesses as much as big businesses. Because what happens with big businesses, they have to, SARS need them to submit sort of tax returns 3 times in a year, so that they collect their money quicker. I suppose it also eases, not that they've got cash flow problems, it also eases the burden of just paying the whole lot at the end when it's 28%. So at the end, when they calculate 28%, they're going to deduct whatever that you paid in 6 months' time, because you pay the first return is in 6 months' time of your financial year end. The next one is at the end of your financial year, and the next one is the following year in August.
So this provisional tax, it's focusing on the profit as well, the net
Yes,
income.
it's the same as the corporate tax.
So this is, we're not talking about VAT here.
No.
This is just
No,
tax on
this
income.
is a direct tax
Okay.
on your taxable income. On your
But why
net
would they
income.
tax me before the year is out? What if things
So you
change?
estimate. So
Okay.
what you do is you say, because you say, okay, as a business last year, in the last financial year, we made 100,000 profit, right? And then you assume that at most we're gonna make the 100,000. So you use your base estimate. You use the 100,000 as your base estimate, and you pay based on that. That's why I'm saying that it doesn't really work well for smaller businesses, because you need all the cash you can get to sustain you throughout the end, to invest in other things, as opposed to that money sitting in SARS, right? But for bigger businesses, they can't get away from this. Trust is a discussion for another day. Okay, so these are the taxes that SARS has put in place to ease off the whole compliance issues, or the burden of paying so much tax. So if you think about 28%, I think here, let me see. If you think about 28%, I think turnover tax is up to about 13% of your turnover. So the first tax, it's only based on your turnover, not your profit. So as long as you make $1 million and less in your business, you can apply for turnover tax. So it's really for the small guys who are still starting up. And you don't have to declare to SARS what you spent on, how much money is, how much of your turnover or your profit you actually spent on. So you don't have to declare your expenses for the business. You just tell them it's 980,000, and then they tax you accordingly. But so the maximum of tax that you can pay on $1 million is 30,500. I think this was as of 2016, 17. So it goes up as every year when they change the threshold. And within that turnover, you mustn't have, like for instance, let's say your business, you've got your core business, and then maybe you're doing rentals on the side. That rental income mustn't be more than 20% of the turnover. So we have a small business tax. So a small business tax, you fall into the small business tax criteria once your income or once your turnover exceeds $1 million, right? If it exceeds $1 million, but it's not more than 14 million per annum, then you still pay a reduced percentage compared to the 28%. So you've got your threshold SARS will tell you if you fall within this, or if you make, like for instance, 5 million. And the difference between your tax, your turnover tax, and your small business corporation tax is that the turnover tax is based on the turnover, whereas the second bullet point is based on your net income, so your profits. So that's where you have to declare both your turnover as well as your expenses that are incurred during the year. Yeah. Another nice thing that they've put in place is the employee tax incentive. It's a nice one because you don't pay SARS this time, they pay you. But if you have young people from the ages of, what's the starting age for working? Is it 18? 16? Really?
It was, I think.
Send them to work. So, from, I suppose from 16, yeah, 16 sounds very, okay, so whoever that works at 16 till I think 29. So you get sort of a cashback from SARS.
Is it?
Yeah.
What if you're the one of the business and you're less than 29? Can you claim something?
You're not an employee. So with SARS, you have to, there's like conditions. It's actually a bit tedious, but you have to like, there's all these definitions that you have to go through in order to meet any of those, you know. So unfortunately, Tshepo cannot be an employee and a business owner at the same time.
So can you actually, like, if you haven't been claiming, because one of the businesses that I'm exiting now, that I exited, we actually had a lady who's less than 29, but we've never claimed that. She's been working for us for almost 4 years. Can we beg her to claim?
Have you been submitting
Yes, yes.
like all the other taxes like UIF and everything else?
Yes, yes.
It's just a claim.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they can go retrospective. It's actually an interesting one because everyone wants money back. So they'll be surprised that you've been losing money or you didn't want their money. So
It's what you're saying, knowledge.
I'll
It's
check.
what you're saying,
So,
knowledge.
yeah.
It's knowledge.
Let's read. It's just a Twitter thing. Read. Ask questions. Okay?
Wow, this is good stuff.
So I'll put that question down for you. I've never had this case because everybody wants the money. Yeah, so I'll need to check if you can do retrospective. I doubt that ladies SARS, especially now that the Guptas have taken just about every money and SARS they're trying so hard to recover, which will take them quite a number of years. And the last tax regime that they've put in place to help small businesses is what's called accelerated depreciation. So it's based on the zones, on the municipality. So SARS has got a list of the municipalities that you can build, like it's that's linked to construction, right? So you can build something that's business related, a structure, and you can be able to get deductions or cashback from SARS on that. So they've got a list of all the municipalities which they participate in. That's why they call it urban development zone. It's still urban related, so it will be all the municipalities that are around, that are based in urban areas, as opposed to, I don't think Venda will be covered there. Actually, they are not covered there. Right.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I will have to go to another meeting.
Oh, I'm so
Is there
sorry.
any way that I can get all of
The presentation, sure, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then I'll just get the recording for the rest of
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's very informative.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Do we need a 5 minutes leg stretch?
No, I don't. We are fine.
You're fine.
We are fine.
Yeah.
At least Marco is the choice. Next one. The next one, please.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to pick now. The next regime is employees tax. So as an employer, you have to withhold pay as you earn from your employees, right? I think now it's about 350,000. If your employee earns about 350,000, they translate to what? About 29, 30? per month.
Mhm.
You don't have to submit to SARS, right?
Oh, is
And
it?
you can't withhold tax from those people. But see, the problem with that is that if, let's say, as an employee, if you go to the bank, for instance, and you want maybe a housing loan or anything of the sort, you won't be able to get it because there's no track record for you. So it's always because at the end of the day, you can withhold tax, SARS is going to pay back to that person at the end of the financial year, at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Right? So in essence, it's almost like SARS is making money because that's any interest sitting there, and you're only going to get it as a refund at the end of the year.
So let me get this clearly. So you said for you to start paying pay as you earn, I'm talking about a small business you've just set up. At
So
what point do you register for that pay as you earn, the SDLs and the UIF? I just want to know legally when you're required to do those kind of things.
So I'm trying to get to the thingy here. This is 2016, 17, around 17, around 18, 19 now. Okay, so the minute you start a business, you always have to apply for a pay-as-you-earn as a business immediately, right? UIF, unless you're saying you as a business person are not going to be able to draw income, right? And you only have contractors, because that's the only time, excuse me, you won't be able to withhold UIF from the employees. If they are contractors, because even if someone is on a temporary contract, you still have to, as long as they work for you for more than, is it 3 years, is it 3 months or 6 months, you have to withhold UIF from them.
So a practical example is that my wife and I, we are running a business, right? And obviously, okay, there's a small business we started. We don't really have any employees because what we do is that we've created a platform on which contractors come and work.
Yeah.
So we don't need, but we have to pay ourselves.
You don't draw a salary.
No, we don't. We don't necessarily. We just.
So how do you pay yourself?
Oh, okay. Basically, we do. I don't know if you would say it's drawing a salary or we just pay ourselves whatever. It's not like a fixed thing. So in a situation like that where you live off whatever you've made, the profit for that month.
Okay, so it's
that
profit
qualifies
as
as
opposed, it's a profit, okay, so you wouldn't necessarily call that a salary
Yeah.
as per se, because a salary, it has to be a fixed amount every year, every day, every month. Every month, and either increase or decrease. I don't think we're allowed to decrease people's salaries, but most likely increase on a yearly basis, inflationary based. As long as you don't draw a salary, then you don't have to apply for pay-as-you-earn.
But if I start to draw a salary that's fixed, then I must apply for
pay-as-you-earn.
pay-as-you-earn.
And UIF. And UIF.
Okay.
SDL, there's a whole lot of other conditions that you have to, a company has to meet before they have to apply for the SDL. But you can do it as a company voluntarily, because I think on a daily basis, you, whether formal or informal, you're training your employees. So that is actually critical, because I think Department of Labor, they're now working into giving employers incentives when they've trained so many people, because it's just good for government and everything else. I think for them, it's, I know they say we're worried about the state of the people, and yet they give people grants. So that for me just doesn't make sense. But as an employer, I would advise that you rather use that 1%, because okay, so UIF, so pay as you earn is based on your threshold, on your salary, where you are in terms of SARS, right? And then UIF, it will be 1% from an employee that you need to withdraw, and then 1% from an employer. So that makes 2%. SDL, it will be 1% from the net amount after you've calculated tax on the employee's salary. That's the 1% that you need to pay. Over and above that, the company needs to contribute towards the compensation fund. How that works is that if the employee is injured at work, that covers almost like your insurance. So what happens is you submit all your information to, I think it's the Department of Labor who are administering that. Submit to them, and then they calculate how much your contribution as a company should be at, and then you submit, you pay that on an annual basis.
So is that, with us in construction, we have got
you guys have to be done. Is it COIDA? Is it?
Yeah, COIDA.
Yes.
Okay, so is that enough if you, because you have to apply for it and it gets renewed?
Yes,
and so forth.
yes.
So we don't have to do a separate application like this?
The next one, please. So, the first slide that we did about taxes, those were direct taxes. So what do you mean by direct taxes is those taxes that are charged against your income, your taxable income. Indirect taxes, they're not necessarily charged against your income, but based on whatever transactions that you engage in. VAT, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, is there, and it's just increased 15%, we know. Transfer duty when you're buying property. If you're a company and you're registered for VAT, you don't have to pay transfer duty.
That's on purchases of property.
Of property, of capital investments, of property. But if you're an individual and you've purchased property as your dominant home that you stay in, not for investment purposes, you have to pay transfer duty depending on how much the value of your property is. So 900,000 of that value is calculated at 0%. So you don't, if your property is 800,000, you don't have to pay for transfer duty.
Okay.
But if it's 950,000, you pay on the 50,000. Yeah. So it's on a sliding scale up to about 13%.
Oh,
And it changes every year, they review it every year. Capital gains tax is when you sell your property. If you're an individual, the first 2 million on the value of the company is exempt. Anything that's above, it's taxable.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this. So in a situation like in this economy, where I know for a fact that a lot of young companies are struggling, and you start to fall behind on VAT or pay as you earn, and so forth. Are there any relief mechanisms that SARS employs to say if you go there and say, look, we can't pay that, or we are behind our pay as you earn, and that kind of thing, because we're struggling? I know there are penalties for late payment.
Yes.
And I know that you would not get the tax clearance, for example.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
if, in our case in construction, you will be suspended on the CITB. So you won't do business with government. So my question is, given the fact that the government is saying that we want to encourage SME growth, what do they do if you come and say, look, I can't do this anymore? Or I need relief for 5 months or something like that?
I think everybody else will be like queuing at SARS so they can allow one human being to do that. Unfortunately, they cannot be that lenient, because then then they are contravening with their own rules of compliance.
Okay.
I think they can tell you at as much as non-compliance it is not to pay, at worst or at best for you can pay penalties and interest.
and you hope that they don't really go after you anytime soon.
Mm.
They'll start with the big guys.
Mm.
Yeah, no.
So generally they focus on the big guys.
For now. Up to today, or maybe yesterday, they have been. And I've heard that actually recently they're even going after musicians.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you can't, so you, exactly, because it's crunch time for them. You cannot be running a country with trillions in debt. You can't. So I cannot say that they're now concentrating on the big guys. There is a center in Woodmead, they call it Large Business Center. Those are the guys who are dealing with the big guys. And then all the other, like Renberg, SARS and whatever, you never see the big guys there, the big companies. They all go to LBC in Woodmead. Everybody else has to go to all other branches. Those branches, they then have to deal with all other people. Yeah. Okay, the next one. Okay, let's pass the quotable quotes. People will find them on the way. So budgeting. Are you able to open those other slides? Remember the other,
Yes.
yes, the other, I think it's all, they're all Excel.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to be more practical if we go through like real-time examples as opposed. So what is a budget? I mean, we do it, or at least I hope we all do it on a personal basis, right? But I think what I found is that when you're earning a salary, you don't worry about the budget because you know you're going to get money at the end of the month anyway. Whether it fits whatever that you would have incurred for the month is a problem for month end. So really budgeting it really is a financial plan. You plan how much you want to make for the 12 months and you plan the resources you're going to need for those 12 months and then you cost it accordingly. Right? So a budget should really help us as business people to make decisions, right? In terms of if a business is making so much money, for instance, this year, are we going to be able to grow in the next year? If we're going to be able to pull out these profits and be able to reinvest them in the business or be able to reinvest them in assets to actually help us to generate more income. It monitors our business performance, like what I was saying. You would never know how much expenses you've incurred. Okay, you know how much you incurred because you have to pay these creditors, right? But you can never know if you were supposed as a business to incur those expenses unless you have a budget. Because a budget, you have to do it before the beginning of your financial year as a business. Because it forecasts you in terms of these are the only things that I'm going to be spending on. Yes, it happens sometimes in business that some of the things, they come up, right? Things happen. They come up in business and we find ourselves paying for certain things that we did not budget for. But it cannot be everything. You must be able to say, okay, out of all this, excuse me, out of all these expenses that I've incurred, these are the ones that I knew that were going to happen. And these are the ones that, they just came. Yeah?
So the challenge that I've had sometimes, especially with small businesses, because this has to be a practical session, right? Sometimes the revenue itself, we know that we have to budget for a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years even. But you'll find that the revenue is erratic sometimes. And only speaking for myself, sometimes I feel like, what is the point of doing the budget? Because I don't know 3 months from now when the money is going to come from and so forth. Yet, a key point in budgeting is your income, is your revenue, your sales, right?
Yeah. That's where you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
That's where your assumptions need to come in, and your assumptions have to be based on practical things. You don't just say, I want to make $1 million.
Mm.
You know, what is that million based on?
Yeah.
Which way is research needs to take place?
Mm.
What is happening on your industry?
Mm.
You know, what is happening in your industry? Where do you think you're going to find clients? How are you going to get those clients? What does it mean to my revenue if I'm only going to have... You can budget for 3 months to say, I expect to only make 3 months worth of revenue for this year. But then the question is that realistic? Because that's the question that you need to ask yourself. Because if that's realistic, then stick to that 3 months. 3 months worth of revenue. Is it going to be 3 months worth of revenue within that first 3 months or in between? Or how is it going to be spread over? And then because then you need to plan as a business, if I'm only going to generate 3 months worth of revenue, therefore these are the resources that I need to have.
Mm.
I cannot go buy a whole lot of other things if I know I'm only going to be able to sell X amount of money, X amount of you can't buy a whole lot of stock.
Mm.
So you can't buy a whole lot of stock if you know your clients are not going to come through. You know, they're only going to come through. Yours is actually very critical because the quality of the food that you need to serve, you know, you can't buy more if you know that your customers are not going to come through. You get me? So I think we need to... Jude, are you able to just go to those Excel? I just want to show you a couple of businesses how they do their budgets. That's why I'm saying on point 2, you have to be conservative based on realistic assumptions.
The budget model.
Yes. Anything that's got a budget there. So we can just bring that one up. We're just going to whiz through it.
I think while he's doing that, we can also ask questions.
Yes, exactly. So please, feel free, don't... Yeah, I think I've been talking too much throughout. I hardly hear any questions and I'm now worried. Any questions whilst we're still on there? Budgets are they're very tedious. And you think that they are, especially at the beginning, because like you're saying, you know, your revenue is very erratic because you're still starting out. You don't know. Yeah. So in budget you have your setup budget when you start the business. So you need to say these are the things that I'm going to need in terms of capital, in terms of yeah. So this was the budget for a restaurant that I had to help set up. So are you able to go on those tabs down there? The tabs.
Interior design.
Yeah.
Project.
So all that, your back of the house, capex, interior design, those all form part of your setup budget. And then you need to move from your setup budget, you need to move to your startup budget. Your startup budget, for instance, if you're going to start a business, sometimes it's very unrealistic to say, I'm going to make my first sale or my first deal next month while I only started this month. It takes time. So your startup budget is the money or the buffer that you need for the first 6 months of the business. Because the assumption is the first 6 months of the business, you're hardly going to make any income. If you're lucky, you're going to make some, like your 3 months. And when you go to these institutions, the DFIs, your NEFs and your IDCs, they need to understand how much are you not going to, for over how many months are you not going to be able to generate any income. So 6 months is what is acceptable, especially if you're going to get money from investors. You can't go to the tabs. So let's go that way. Is this the first one?
Yeah. Oh, there's more.
So, okay, let's go to monthly budget, right? Let's go up. So this was the summary of the capex budget, these guys, right? This is how much they needed. Well, 620 was what was allocated to them, but they had a variance of 56. So they had to go back and say, okay, so what is it that we can do without within the 6 months? See, that's how budget is helpful, because if you're always doing things in your head, you don't see any of this stuff. And if you're doing things in your head, there's a high chance that there's so many critical things that you're going to miss. And you're going to find yourself, whilst you're in the midst of the business, to say, oh my word, we didn't think about this, but we need it critically. So that's the role of budget. It really is not a paper exercise. It's not a paper exercise. You have to, if anything, even if you're not going to have money to fund any of the things that you've written down, but you're aware that these are the things that are needed by the business,
That's right.
critically or not so critically. The non-critical stuff, you can always move forward. Yeah? Okay, let's drop this one. Let's go to another one. Another budget model, sorry.
On a different sheet altogether.
It will be a different, yeah, it will be a different sheet.
So just while they're doing that, just to comment, because I work a lot with new ventures. Yeah, this is where I think that the rubber hits the road.
Exactly.
I've seen that this is the downfall of many small businesses.
Exactly.
It's like Lovemore was saying,
It's a plan.
hand to mouth.
Exactly.
You know, you are not aware of what you're actually doing, the bigger picture. And I've realized that the budget, especially when you do variance analysis,
Exactly.
you compare now what you said you do and where you are.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
you know how much money you're losing. Because the moment you exceed your budget, you're actually dipping into your capital
Exactly.
and so forth. So if you live like that, it's a matter of time before you run out of cash flow in the business.
And it's time for your growth
It does.
as a business. It's
Yeah,
time for
because you
your
can't
growth.
fund anything.
And in trying to recover, it takes quite a while. Unless you know you get funding, but even then it becomes even that much difficult to get funding if people can see that your ducks are not in the row in terms of managing your business.
Can I just ask a question
Yes.
quickly? Not to you. Just I mean, guys, this is what we are here for. All of us, how many of us who are into business have got a budget that they've drawn up so far for their business?
Not for myself, for
Now I'm talking about for your business, because you're in business, right?
yeah.
When you're an accountant.
Mm.
This is where you got a budget.
Yes.
And love more.
That's where your cash management issue is, yeah? Because you can't solve what you don't know.
Exactly.
You can't.
Mm.
You suck and not solve what you don't know. And really people think, accountants are trying to sell us all the stuff.
Exactly.
It's not stuff.
This stuff is very important.
It is very critical, and I really think that, because that's why I was saying that this is just a teaser, right?
Mm.
This is, so let's go to detailed expense budget. So this is the fund that we did a budget for.
Okay.
So they were receiving some funds from the US, right? And obviously before they receive those funds from the US, they need to submit a budget.
Mm.
Let me show you how irritatingly detailed the assumptions are. Please go to the assumptions. Yeah. These are the guys who make about, or at least they receive about. Well, yeah. No, these guys they get a lot of money from the US government. Only if our government was that generous. Because at the end of the day, I've seen so many. You guys must just for your own interest look at the economy in Finland and France. Just research on just those two, and you'll see what the impact of having an involved government. In Finland, you only have government and entrepreneurs, nothing else.
What?
Yes. Because government, their vision is exactly what we talk about in South Africa. They are doing it.
Wow.
But then you guys are not in government, so yeah. So if you look at this, investors, They want to know what your budget is based on, the assumptions. You have to be that detailed. How many people am I going to employ? At what point am I going to employ the people? How much the cost? If there are any benefits at all, let's go down. Let's go down. Okay? You look at the detail of what the resources or the cost drivers that are needed to channel the revenue. You have to go to that detail. I know it's tedious, but once you get used to, you know how a habit works. To develop a habit, like I was asking, I'm not sure what most people used to do when there was no Twitter and everything. That was a habit, by the way. So learn this on a daily basis, even if you practice it every time you've got a spare moment. Every time you know you're not going to be in meetings or whatever, just look at that. Just scribble. I carry around my notebook. I was just finished. I carry around a notebook. Whenever I've got an idea or something that I think I need to do, okay, I don't do forms. Like, I'm challenged when it comes to IT. So this for me, that's my black book. I write any ideas that come whilst I'm wherever it is. I hardly forget that I've got phones. The only time I remember I've got a phone is when I know it's time to go fetch my kids and just check if I'm going to be there on time enough. But other than that, I'm not saying phones are critical for business. Don't get me wrong. I think my clients and I have an understanding there. I'm grateful that they've accepted that I will not always going to take every one of their calls, because not that I'm too busy for them, but I'm just busy doing other things. What I appreciate, you send me a WhatsApp, I attend to it there and then, quickly, as opposed to us trying to. I know there are those people who can only engage via phones, but then there are those people also who can only, yeah. So if you look at that, the detail, because that's what I wanted us to look at. This is not an example, it's a real life situation where an organization in South Africa is receiving millions of dollars from the US government to create a fund.
Is it an NGO?
No, it's a fund. Yeah, it's a fund. So they pay tax and everything else in South Africa. So it's a business, but it's just that it's a fund. Yeah. So whether you do it on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis, but what always works is that your budget for the year should always be monthly, because you do activities on a daily basis that accumulates to a month for month. And when you report, you cannot wait till the end of the quarter. Some industries you have to report. It actually makes sense for the business to report on a weekly basis, but most of them it's on a, especially when you're doing projects. Projects is actually an everyday reporting, because you need to know your milestones for the day, for the week. How are you doing against them? That's actually budgeting. How are you doing against those milestones? Are you behind? Are you ahead? Are you in check in terms of the milestones, in terms of the money that you need to spend? Because if not, then cash management issues come through. Okay. So what I'll suggest, because there's still so much to cover and it's already 10 to 1, is what I was saying to you, Raymond, that this is so broad. It's not a discussion. This is just a teaser to say these are all the areas that you need to consider as a business person. So depending on interest, then in the next sessions we can then drill into budgeting.
Yes.
Drill into cash management, because that's a day focus area. You can't do it in a whim. You can't.
So what I suggest, we're expecting that.
Yeah.
I think what I suggest is we can wrap up now and have a few questions, but I think this was very good for us to just see what we don't know, actually.
It's a good start.
Yeah,
because,
so that was always the
if
point.
you can just clear the SARS issue.
Yes.
that already, it makes your business look so much better in terms of your margins.
Yeah. So let's wrap up then. You can wrap up in which way, then we can have questions.
I
Then
think
we
let's
can
go
close.
back to the slides. I just want to check on the financial management. I think the next one will be internal controls. So this is the budgeting. I think this is the last slide on budgeting. So guys, I think you can ask questions. We'll stop here on budgeting because after this is a new topic on the internal controls.
Yes, yes.
Which not necessarily has nothing to do with budgeting, but it is linked somehow. So I think it's better we stop here.
That's correct. I agree.
You know, at least I think hopefully you guys have got some food for thought that you're gonna go home and reflect on and try to see how you can actually start implementing these things in your businesses.
All right, questions, guys. We have to ask at least one each. You know, anything
That I would expect.
Yes. I've
That I would
asked a lot of
expect.
questions already.
Starting with Tepco. Sorry, I have to pick on you. No, it's the adult child thing. You understand the youngest.
Well, it's not really a question,
Yeah.
but then I've liked a lot. So with budgeting, I only had thoughts and ideas on the things I needed for the production. But then I never really knew how to draw it all out. Like the finance on purchasing a house for production and the payments for the people I'll be working with for that period of time. Because we don't really know when we'll get the clients. So I didn't know how to play it all there. But now, listening to how you are presenting it all, I think I have an idea, though I don't even know where to start with drawing the budget.
I think what will be useful is I can send them to Raymond, like the templates
Okay.
that you guys can start working on. Because a budget, that's why you can't do a budget today and say, I'm starting business tomorrow.
Yeah.
It takes time. Because you need to think about anything that you're going to pay money for, it has to be in the budget. Anything. As long as as long as it's not on the budget, then you're assuming that you're not going to pay money for it. So that should be your resounding principle to say anything that I'm going to have to pay money for has to be in the budget.
Okay.
Then your next question then will be the quantum. How much of it are you going to need? Because you also need to try. You'll see on the next session we'll talk about how do we analyze or balance our expenses. Because it's good and well to say I've spent 30% of my revenue or 50% of my revenue, but what does that mean exactly? How much of that does it directly link to generating income? How much of that is overhead? Is it overhead that I can do without? Because some of the entrepreneurs, I always see they always want to have fancy offices before they make any money. I know guys who actually had to pay some like 300 grand a month for offices. Yes. And it didn't last that long.
Yeah.
Yes. And let me tell you, investors they're not fascinated by your offices, by the way, or by the car you drive. They need to hear what's in your head, what you're thinking before. No, but, I mean, think about it, you yourself. Can you invest in someone who's first starting with a 4x4? I hope not that he drives a 4x4. Caesar, why are you laughing so hard? Yeah. If you're thinking about a 4x4, don't. Yeah. It's actually quite interesting. The other day, sorry, I'll come to you soon just now. The other day I was calculating because we were trying to figure out what van to buy. There's a work van and then there's a want van. I needed a work van, my husband needed a want van. with all the things. And by the way, let me tell you, with the vans as well, SARS will not give you the benefit of the deductions if you have a 4x4 and you call it a work van. It has to be a van, otherwise just money in the drain.
Wow.
So when you're looking at your expenses, you must always consider all those things. And even the thing, I was actually horrified. If $500,000 car, van, a $500,000 van, you pay anything between 11,000 to 13,000 per month. That's 11,000, 13,000 that you can invest in your business and generate income, as opposed to paying the capital amount and the interest over goodness knows how many months. And then, because then you ask yourself, how is this going to grow the business? How is this going to generate revenue? Is it worth the cost versus benefit analysis? Is this 13,000 worth of a car, much as you need a car for business? Because you need to link it to benefits, to profit. How much did it make for you?
Just to echo what Sepo was just saying, especially about budget. You know, even myself, it's not really a question, but I've learned that, you know, in the past what used to happen was I used to assume unrealistic stuff and use my brain and make unrealistic projections, you know. And it's so interesting to learn that not so long ago I was having a meeting with Mr. Ray and we thought we actually suggested that 6,000 is needed for the business, but when I was at home looking at actually what I need, I came to realize that I only needed 2,000.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's what a budget does, because it's easy to think it's all in the head, I've got it,
Yes.
because I know what to do. But as you put it and you pen it down, that's when it really, it
And I always had that notion of like starting fancy and, you know, till the other day, you know, I got the quote that, you know, I should start where I am, you know, this is what I have, you know, start scared, shaking, and, you know, all will come well, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think would be a question is that, you know, in the past what used to happen was I used to do things efficiently on my own. And by bringing someone on the board and managing him, I would look for someone who has similar traits as me. So sometimes I would make a misjudgment, you know, because I
you don't
want.
employ relatives.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, I've seen that. That doesn't work. Let me tell you guys, it doesn't.
Because at the end of the day, what happens is that I end up, you know, guys would be satisfied other than, I don't think I had enough, I played a good job by engaging them, you know. Because what they normally did is when I'm in front of them, they would act as if,
Exactly.
you know.
That's what employees do. They're like kids. That's what they do, always.
But when I leave, you know, I hear stories that, you know, when you leave, you know, it's a party.
We'll deal with the party repellent next time in the form of internal controls. That's very key. Yeah. No, I'm glad that worked for you. And it does. And it doesn't have to be a fancy budget. You can do either an Excel worksheet or even you can write stuff for me if you're challenged like me when it comes to all these gadgets.
So,
Just that.
yeah.
Yeah. Please, love me.
Okay. I think it's a good thing. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
So,
and
the-
the masters in development finance.
Okay. Yeah.
So at the moment, me and my wife, we are trying to, because I'm trying to move away from from advisory services, because I've been writing reports for a long time. So
It does get tired.
yeah, so we are trying to get into something, maybe sell some products. So we've recently identified like a gap in the duty-free retail business in Zimbabwe.
That's good.
Yeah, so we've been brainstorming, but the thing is, we haven't been looking at what is required. How much does it cost to rent a small shop? the staff we need to employ. We haven't looked at merchandising. Well, what kind of product? Okay, we've got the list of products,
Yeah.
but we haven't really costed everything,
Yeah.
as well as if there are any licenses required, any fees. So I think with what I've learned today, I think today we will sit down and
It's a painful,
and
necessary
put
laundry
figures
list
to
that
the
you have
idea.
to, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
put figures to the idea.
Yeah.
And also you touched on internal controls.
Yes.
So yeah, I think sometime like 2 years ago, I was trying to set up another venture.
Yeah.
With some friends. Yeah, we got a pretty good project, but in the end, some friendships were broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were a lot of disputes around managing money, and also disputes where because it was a big research project where some team members, they ended up walking away, and then for us, the guys who left, it meant more work for us.
Yeah.
And then there were all these disputes. Some people had to be paid, but they didn't contribute anything to the project.
Yeah.
So I think I would want maybe in the future to hear what you have to say about the internal controls.
Yeah,
How
that's
to-
the
yeah.
like, that was going to be the next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a to be continued. And I think for me, you can. I don't think you can have a successful business if you have clashes with someone in terms of values.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's where you lose it.
Yeah.
Which is why, as a business, you need to formalize the ethos of the business. Because that's when you thresh out, are we connected, or do we understand values on a personal level, not even on a business level? Because that's what builds the business. It's your personal values.
Okay.
So that it has to be penned down, and everybody who's involved in the business, from a shareholder point of view, needs to agree. To say, this is what we stand for as a business. Because then you don't have to explain yourself when you guys happen to have a squabble. You refer back to the ethos of the business.
Okay.
Yeah. But internal controls we shall do
All right.
next time. Yeah.
Shelton.
Yeah, under pillars of a successful business, you mentioned that your employees must be satisfied. How do you satisfy your employees?
No, I said, don't get close to satisfied employees. You could employ them by mistake, Shelton, but you want engaged employees.
Yeah, when I was writing down, it was satisfied employees and engaged employees.
Yes.
So I just want to find out about the
Or how do you
satisfied.
satisfy? You can never satisfy a satisfied employee. Because let me tell you, you give them benefits, salary and everything today, Raymond comes with a better salary, they are gone. You start all over. You can never. That's why I'm saying don't. If it happens by mistake, try and salvage the situation by, hopefully when they see the culture of the business, they'll be encouraged and inspired to say, you know what, maybe actually that's a good thing. I want to be part of that. And then they change. But in most cases, don't waste your time, energy and effort and money with satisfied employees. Doesn't work.
Can I just open up another topic for discussion, maybe in the future? Because here we're talking about how to start a business, right, and the whole process of how to go about it. But let's also look at how to finance. Well, I think there are a lot of people with ideas, but where to start in terms of the money, where to get the money, how to, they don't have an idea of how to get the money for them to start something. So maybe let's just talk about that as well, because I feel like there are people out there who've got ideas, but they don't have the starting point, which is the money,
Yeah.
to put something together.
And I think
Yeah.
you
One of the
actually
slides,
mentioned it,
one
yes.
of the slides was actually going to cover the elements of yeah. So we were going to discuss obviously the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. Within the balance sheet, we were going to talk about all those elements to say, you know, what is good debt, what is bad debt, what is, you know, how do I, you know, get funding, and when do I get funding, and what kind of investors do I need as a business? Because some people, unfortunately, especially in the venture capital space, they've got lots of money. They couldn't be bothered. They just want something to invest in and have a return. They're not vested in the business. So you don't want those kind, much as you really need the money, you really have to assess your investors. Because they want a share of your company and you'll be working hard for it. They couldn't be bothered, it's just money for them.
Yeah, so
you need to look at those as well. So that's one of the things that we were going to discuss under the balance sheet items. Yeah.
Marco?
That's a good point.
Yeah, okay. All right. Jude, Lindy?
With the kind of business that I want to do, with this whole children thing, it means engaging your employees will be very important.
You definitely need engaged employees in your setup. Because you want kids are exactly. No, kids are very good. They're such good detective characters. A child doesn't like you or she likes you. It ends exactly there. There's never miss. We don't miss our words when we're that short.
Yeah.
So you definitely need engaged employees. Even if you have to go through some aptitude tests, just to make sure that, you know. But I think importantly, it starts with the values, your values, the value match. You have to discern that. You have to look at that from the word go. Because those are the kinds of people. You don't take people just looking for a job. And you can hear them when you're interviewing them. That this one, yeah, no, the next best thing is when it comes, he or she's gone. Don't waste your time on people like that. Much as we want to create employment. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? We have to wrap this thing up now.
Yeah.
Our time is up.
And I think DSA here didn't tell me about the dress code. So next time I'll come in my jeans.
Oh.
And take this.
We're still figuring it out. Let's put our heads together. Well, some people may be wondering why she's calling herself Baba Lwa.
Yeah, it's my name for the day.
Yeah.
I still need to communicate it to my family.
Yeah, in typical fashion, I've renamed Baba Lwa from Barbara. Because a lot of the guys in our church, I don't know, I just give them these names, you know. So you'll never be sure who's is Lindy or Chico, you know. It happened.
And I'll leave this bag. Yeah.
So Baba Lwa means favored one, right?
Yes, apparently, yeah.
Favored one, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank
Barbara.
you.
Wow, this was amazing, wasn't it?
Was.
This was amazing because I think what you managed to do, Barbara, is to give us an idea of the space that we are walking into. I mean, I've been in business for 4 years, but you could clearly see that I've been asking. Because what happens is that when you are sitting sometimes at the top, you don't understand the other things that actually happen. Because you always, I mean, we had accountants who just run everything for us.
Yes.
So sitting here has now actually opened my eyes. Say, oh, okay, why did you pay for that young lady who's in that department?
Exactly.
And so forth.
And that's very dangerous. Maybe fellow accountants are gonna kill me for saying this, but you can never, you can't. Oh, because that's over delegation.
Yeah.
You can't delegate your business to someone else. It's good and well that they're doing things faster for you, but you need to know why they're doing those things. At some point, you need to be weaned out of that situation and be able to do things yourself, whether by employing someone who's going to be cheaper than your accountant, who's going to do things, and then your accountant maybe they just do the other regulatory stuff like submitting to SARS and stuff. But most of the things you can be able to do as you learning. So it's very dangerous to leave everything to accountant. I know guys who left everything to their accountants, and at the end they realized that they owed SARS so much because the guy wasn't paying them, he was forgetting it. So you cannot. That is so important. At least understand why they're doing what they're doing, because then you can also be able to challenge them. Yeah.
All right, so that's all for today. Thank you so much again,
Thank you.
Babalwa.
Yes.
Right, so the future, I think in about a month, I ideally would like to sit here. The topics that were raised, Joy, you talked about the issue of financing. What I would like to do is we'll see if we can get a bit more time. I think the next one will have it more like a proper workshop where we can actually go into it. So you were saying that how do I actually start drawing a budget and so forth, and I think that you're going to help us and then just do everything and we can just work together. That means you'd have to bring your laptops. So this is not one of those things where we're just going to have speakers, but it's one of those things where we want to be developing the business as we go. Right? And then the time for the rock stars like the Vusit and the Kwailo, there's also that. But I think what we want ideally is to walk out of here with businesses. So I know like I'm working with Shelton. I see there was also a slide where you have project accounting.
Yes.
That's so important for us in construction. It's extremely important. And so I think what we'll do is that I'll engage with you. From your side, I'll give you the guests, and then we'll look at the topics that we need to cover. Yeah. Right? So that we focus. Today was more of an introduction, then we start to focus more on that. I think another thing that I wanted to just say is that with someone like Love More, Marco, Joy, and everybody else, but especially Love More, you are more into the finance aspect of it. I think we would need to create maybe about 20 or so minutes just from that session for you to speak to us about how to access funding. Some of us are looking forward to doing business internationally. You've been with every institution that funds, you know. So we would love for you to prepare also a presentation like that, you know, so that it becomes a proper bank where you can get whatever you need for business, right? In addition to just speakers and so forth. Right.
Yeah, because it's very different from when you're on the inside and when you're on the outside.
On the outside, yeah, because funding is a big issue.
It is.
It is. So I think just to the last thing I must mention is that I think we need to now, when I communicate with you guys, we need to pick a topic to focus on. On the next one. Exactly. Out of everything. Yeah. Then we know we are coming from.
Yeah. I think that's why, because what we've got on those slides is the cocktail of everything.
Yes, it is everything.
Which is why we said it's a teaser. So what we need to do, we need to share with the guys the whole
I'll
presentation, and then you just go through it in your own spare time, then you can be able to say, next, this is the area of my interest, and then you can be able to see how many people are interested in that area, and then
we can touch maybe on a few other things, but we have the topic.
Exactly.
All right. Once again, thank you so much.
No, thank you so much
for doing this.
I'm grateful for being here. I think it's high time, guys, we stop feeling sorry for ourselves.
Absolutely.
We just don't have time to feel sorry for ourselves. Let's work. Let's work. There's no any other way. We have to work. We have to. I know we all specialize in different areas, but you need to know. I think one of the things as an accountant you're forced to do is to understand the whole business, because you need to know what's not working in terms of the figures and be able to communicate to the relevant people. So as a business leader, you have to know what's happening in your business. It might not be in that minute detail on a day-to-day, but you have to know, because you never know when things are not working. And by the time you catch it, it's so late. You wouldn't believe that a big corporation as KFC, they had this granny who actually stole millions from them. A bookkeeper who just used to just take 1 rand of royalties per day. And nobody saw that, because isn't it that we accountants always say, it's an insignificant, isn't it? Yeah. But then when you think about it over 12 months, it's no longer insignificant. Exactly. There's no such thing as insignificant when you're running your own business.
Okay.
Shouldn't be.
All right,
Thank you
guys,
so
we
much,
have to go. No, thank you very much. So
Thank you
I'll
very much.
circulate and we'll talk, invite more people next time. As you can see, we are starting something special here. I think we need to just come here. Let's take a good photo quickly. You know, one day we'll remember it and say, oh, this were the pioneers.
This is where it all started.
That's where it all started.
Yeah,
you know.
the early days.
The early days, yeah. And I'm also hoping that even as we do this, you also see how a dream develops, even from us. So if the game changer started like this. Okay, so everybody come.